Welcome to Just Travel with Sandy. Hey, everybody, I'm Sandy, your guide to stress free and exciting travel. And so, this podcast is all about turning your travel dreams into reality, whether it's dealing with the overwhelm of planning a trip, overcoming travel anxiety, handling language barriers. I speak German, so you don't have to, embracing new cultures with confidence, or anything in between. We'll share practical travel tips to help you navigate new destinations with ease. So, whether you're a seasoned traveler or just starting out in this space, you're here to gain the mindset and tools to explore the world. And I have some exciting news. Sandy's Travel Lounge will be coming soon. So, stay tuned. It's going to be a fun, welcoming community for travelers, people who love to travel. Get ready for some fun events, laughter, expert advice, and curated itineraries, all things travel. So grab your cup of coffee or glass of wine, depending on what time it is where you are, and let's dive into the adventure. Today, I'm really excited to have with us Dr. Christine Powell. And I learned something new. I learned a new expression, a new term from her, and it's called executive function. So, Dr. Christine Powell is an educational therapist specializing in ADHD and unique learning profiles. And she's the founder of Learning by Connecting Education Therapy. And we're going to talk about a few different things today. But first of all, welcome, Dr. Powell, Christine, or Chris, whatever way you'd like to be called. I'm so happy to have you here to share with us a little bit about what you do and help people travel with ADHD. First off, can you explain what it means?
Executive functioning. So
Executive
executive
functioning.
functioning,
Exactly.
yeah. Executive functioning, we're all born with the ability to have executive functioning, except they need to be taught to us. So we're not born with those ability to plan or organize, to goal set, to prioritize, but we typically learn those skills through modeling. So individuals that have ADHD or unique learning profiles need good models in order to help them gain those skills. So we all have the ability. Those are the skills that are in the frontal lobe of our brain. It's the last part of our brain to form, the prefrontal cortex. And they become kind of set about 26 years of age. So those executive functionings are pretty much modeled, and we become quote unquote an adult at 26, where they're kind of set in place. It's really important if you're struggling with the executive functioning challenges to get help, because they could have an impact on the rest of your life.
So that is actually a really interesting point now that you clarified what it is, because I am German. I'm an organizer. I'm a planner. I'm a goal setter. I'm very, people call me rigid, but I'm very structured in certain ways. And I just thought that was a German thing. So, from what you just said, it's more of like you learn it maybe in a cultural way because it's more ingrained in, again, it's a stereotype, right? The punctuality and all that, but it's a stereotype for a reason.
Absolutely. Somebody modeled that. And as a culture, some things we hold at higher esteem than other things. And being on time is an important show of respect. It should be transferable across all cultures, correct? But some cultures may be a little bit lackadaisical or not see that as, one of the main things that needs to happen, right? But we do know for a professional to be successful in their life, time management is ultimately very important, right? Showing
Right.
up and respecting somebody else's time.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Well, I learned something new every day. So tell me a little bit about, and I know you've traveled yourself extensively, and we'll talk about that a little later, but tell me a little bit about how traveling or how someone with, say, ADHD, just using that as an example, how it would be more difficult for a person with ADHD to navigate travel plans. Because I get at that a lot. I'm overwhelmed. There's so much out there. I don't know where to start, and the anxiety piece. So talk a little bit about that because I find that fascinating.
Well, I think we can create even a broader category of individuals that have ADHD, executive learning challenges, or individuals that find the uncertainty of travel just being overwhelming. right? So ADHD is typically associated with being overwhelmed, a lot of stimulus coming in at once, and not being able to parcel it out accordingly. So that feeling of anxiety, or just, again, that feeling of frustration because you don't know all the pieces to the puzzle, right? And I originally got interested in it. I have ADHD, as does my son. However, I grew up in a family that my father was military. And we had very strict rules and regulations. My dad, quote unquote, ran a tough ship, right? We had to make our beds in the morning. We had punctuality was always a big thing, making our time or a schedule, because we were, whether he was on leave or traveling, we knew the schedule by calendar. So I had wonderful role models growing up and how to track my time and prioritize and goal set. And I didn't realize that not everybody had that. And to have an ADHD brain, or, not a neurotypical brain, that was imperative to my kind of upbringing and being able to handle travel in a much more regimented way than maybe somebody who didn't have kind of a structured upbringing. So traveling for me is really just the culmination of, good role modeling and being able to kind of map my trip forward, right? And then, back map, as you probably do, Sandy, with your individuals or your troops, you back map what that looks like for everybody. So it's a learned behavior.
So, and that's really interesting because it's not just the overwhelm of the actual travel planning. Say somebody wants to go to, I don't know, Europe, to
Mhm.
say Italy and France for a week. And obviously there's so much information out there. But it's not just the planning that's overwhelming, but somebody, say, with ADHD that comes to the country, you're saying that they can be overwhelmed by the different modes of transportation and where do I go for dinner? There's like a billion, like all those little nuances.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's we don't know what we don't know, correct? And when we go into a
I
situation
say that all the
where we
time.
already are having anxiety, and then having to land in a spot where we're unsure of, sometimes that fear really precludes a lot of individuals from traveling at all. Because if you know you don't do well in those situations, why would you take that on as an opportunity to frustrate yourself? So teaching individuals strategies in order to plan and organize time management, and even their ability to, it's called impulse control, when they get frustrated or upset, to be able to take a deep breath, look at their map, look at their itinerary, use those skills that they've kind of learned in executive functioning to help them travel better.
So having, say, a planned itinerary in a small group setting, like my trip coming up to Ireland, and that's why I just thought about it. It's a small group, it's 10 people, it's in a small van, it's like very contained. It's not regimented in that, but it's a small group tour. That would be ideal then for somebody with ADHD, for example.
Absolutely. I think the fact that it's a curated event,
Mhm.
that the individuals, it's a small group, you have planned it out very well. I'm assuming that you go through what the itinerary on a line by line so everybody knows what to expect. That's really important because you have done the mapping and the planning. That takes the cognitive burden off the individual actually attending the trip. They can sit back and enjoy what's happening with the understanding and also the trust that you are providing an experience for them, that they aren't having to plan ahead or to think about what's going to take place, even if that has to do with tickets or times that particular venues open.
Right.
You've done that research, again, which takes the load off of an individual. And oftentimes that can relieve the stress and anxiety as well.
That's so interesting. People would talk to me about it, but not in that much detail. So that actually makes a lot of sense and explains a lot. Maybe you were super lucky that you had a father who was that and I don't mean it in a bad way because I like the structure. And that's kind of like how I was raised too. Not that my parents were in the military, but it's that stereotypical German upbringing. And I'm super grateful for that because it's really throughout life, it's really helped me a lot. So for you, I guess it was a gift in addition to having ADHD.
Absolutely. As an education therapist or somebody who works with individuals that have, executive functioning challenges, I really have to dig into obviously where their strengths are, where they're compensating, right, for maybe not being able to plan ahead or prioritize in a way, and then provide those strategies to fill those gaps. Because
Mm-hmm.
typically by the time I see an adult, they've come to me for education therapy, it's they're having pretty significant challenges within their life. And oftentimes that has to do with time management. And when you're on a trip and you're traveling, you have to manage your time
Yeah.
accordingly.
Yeah.
So that's really like a big piece of.
That's interesting, to make the train, to make the on the plane, and to get to your event on time. So that's powerful. I really appreciate you clarifying that. Obviously, this is just a question on the side, but for somebody, say, that is traveling and that is feeling overwhelmed, do you, like, in your practice, teach simple quote unquote stuff, but in my opinion, very powerful things like breathing techniques and meditation? Do you also teach those kind of techniques in your day to day, or is it more redirecting?
I think anything that really, because it's such an individualized therapy, is individualized to the particular person. If that is something that an individual will need, then obviously, being able to understand what a minute feels like. Right? We often say you're going to have to wait 5 minutes in line. And if you say that to a child who doesn't know how to tell time, right? And that could be even at this point in time, a fifth or sixth grader doesn't understand what time kind of feels like.
I
Right? And you're standing in a line waiting to see an exhibit or to get into a show, that can cause a lot of frustration. And that affects not just the child, but the parents, the other individuals on the trip or in line as
absolutely.
well. So being able to understand what that feels like and developing those strategies to help de-escalate those events. So again, whether meditation is part of it or deep breathing or those strategies really to maintain emotional control, because
Hmm.
we want our brain to kick in and function, to be able to problem solve, process the information. And when we're sweating profusely and we're out of control, we're not taking those deep breaths. It's less about the meditation and more about getting centered and thinking about what needs to happen next.
I'm just thinking also when I'm traveling, and if somebody is on the tour, for example, that even though it is a small, contained, curated group, somebody maybe have a little bit of a sense of overwhelm or anxiety, just how to redirect that. Because you're right. I mean, a minute can seem like an hour, even for us sometimes still, right? It's like,
Absolutely.
as an adult, it's like a minute, depending on what situation you're in.
I think it important because with a small group, you said you have approximately 10 individuals.
Mhm.
With a small group of individuals, like having conversations with them, like, would you like a heads up if we're going to be in line for an extended period of time? Would you like some, foreshadowing if in fact we are stuck in traffic? Let me know how I can help you alleviate your stress and anxiety in those moments. Because everybody's so unique. We have a unique learning footprint and our brains function in so many different ways. And when you're working or moving as a group, right, through uncharted territory, and there's a lot of things that can possibly happen, a lot of variables, right? We all process that information very differently. So why somebody may be very relaxed and have flexible thinking, being able to move in a way saying, okay, plan B, somebody else may have a very fixed mindset and being like, but this is what you said we were going to do. Right? And
Right.
having those an open conversation ahead of time saying, hey, how are you, do you think you would handle this situation? And where are you, do you have flexible thinking? And really having them kind of investigate their own thinking, going, yeah, I think I could handle that, Sandy. Right. If we were delayed or if there was impediments to us making a train or a destination on time, I think I could do that. By somebody else saying, absolutely not, I'm going to need you to talk me off the ledge.
That's great. That's a great tip to help people with that, or adapting to a new situation, or even a language. I led a group to Germany, which of course is my mother tongue, German, to Stuttgart in July last year. And people were like, "Oh my gosh, I don't speak German." And although in Germany a lot of people speak English, but it's a fear of not speaking the language and not being able to communicate. How can people apply these tips to different areas of their lives or different situations if they want to plan a trip themselves and not go on a curated trip, or even daily tasks when they are away?
I think it is being able to plan would be the first thing, being able to see the best season to travel to a specific country or what particular event is happening in that country of choice. And then looking at a calendar and kind of back mapping when they are planning to go and everything that needs to happen in order to lead up to that event. So let me give you an example. I'm climbing Half Dome in Yosemite in May.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
You won the lotto. You have to go
No,
into a
I
lotto.
don't. You know what, Sandy? I haven't even applied for the Half Dome permit yet because that doesn't happen till March. But if I
Okay, but you're
wait,
manifesting it. There you
well, if
go.
I waited to March in order to plan, I wouldn't have had a camping site. I wouldn't be able to eat down in the canyon and I wouldn't be able to schedule a horseback ride. So,
Oh,
right, I have to
fun.
be so forward thinking in order to have all those other things planned out. So I had to I look at a map or like a calendar, and then I backtrack it for days. And I know that my accommodations are booked, the horseback riding, the food is booked. Now I need to wait for March to apply for that permit. That's right, the Holy Grail permit, Sandy, which allows me to climb Half Dome. But there's a contingency plan because if in fact I don't get the lottery, I can apply the day of, meaning I'm staying in the park and I can show up at the ranger's hut in the morning at dark 30 in the morning in
Yeah.
hopes that I will receive a permit to climb that day. And
Yep.
I still have several days that I'm staying there that I can continue to show up just in case.
So
So
they take a certain amount of people each day, right? And it's only like a season, like from whenever to whenever, right? Yeah. Yeah. I know some people who've done that last bit with the rope ladder, I guess is what it's called. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're brave. I don't know. The part up to that, maybe, but good,
I'm a person that needs a goal. So
good for you. I
yeah.
love that. That's awesome. And so do you have a plan, say, and I'm not even going to put it out there, but just worst case scenario, and you don't, you'll still have a great time, right?
Absolute worst case scenario, I still have a campsite in Yosemite National Park, and there are so many other exciting things to take, hikes. And of course, I've already booked my horseback ride. So in
Oh,
case Half Dome doesn't work out, I'll still be able to spend some time in the park.
that's awesome. It's so beautiful. Yosemite is, have you been to Yosemite?
Haven't.
It's so beautiful. I just moved to New York from California and it's just so beautiful. So I'm excited for you. So when we chatted before, you mentioned that you've been to Singapore.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that and just a little bit about the cultural differences and your experiences and how you got there. And because Singapore, I have not been to Singapore, but it's definitely on my list.
Oh, Sandy, keep it on your bucket list
Oh,
because
yeah, it's for
it's
sure.
amazing. I went to Singapore in 2019. I was part of the State Department's Fulbright Scholar contingent. There were several of us that participated. There were three of us. Singapore is one of the hardest countries to earn a Fulbright in because their system of it's a small country and they only allow so many individuals within the Ministry of Education system to kind of do research and to look at what they're doing within education. And my subject of focus was neuroatypical learners, so individuals with ADHD and with executive functioning challenges. And subsequently, I fell in love right away with the country. I had to go through extensive interviews prior to going over there to Singapore, which included kind of background checks and scholarly checks to see if I was legit. But I got to spend 6 months in country living down in the Marina Bay Sands area
Yeah.
that I get to run by every morning. And it was an incredible opportunity to almost be in a utopic society. I thought it was. It was
Mm.
very rigid, but it was very safe at the same time. And I'm a rule follower. I do remember something that happened when I was there. TikTok had just come out and they were telling the Singaporean citizens not to download it on their phones. And I think I had a fear in me that if I downloaded it, they would find out and I would somehow be kicked out of the country. But of course, I didn't do it. But they were doing it for the safety of their citizens. And that's something that I didn't do because of the Singaporean government was saying they didn't think it was a wise thing to do. It's super expensive over
Yeah.
there. I just contacted a friend who was Singapore Fulbright as well, and she chose to stay in the country and work at a university over there. And she said that her studio apartment, not even in a downtown area district, was approximately 3,300. And
Yeah.
that's, that's like Chicago or New York or London or Paris.
Right.
Very expensive because there is little land and it is very valuable over there.
A little bit like Hong Kong. I actually, through the horse world, know somebody from Singapore who has horses in Singapore. And a friend of mine went to teach some lessons there from Germany. And she said too, it was, but it's very clean.
Very clean, very orderly. I'm a runner, so I would be running at, sometimes my schedule during the day was hectic and I didn't have an opportunity to get a run in. So I would run in the evenings and I was never fearful. It was impeccably clean. But the
Mm,
most wonderful thing is the food in
yeah.
Singapore. The food in the hawker stalls it's just mind blowing in respect to so many different cultures, right? You have the Indonesian food there, you have the Malay food there, you have the Chinese influence as well. Just an incredible just display of seafoods and tantalizing spices that I haven't tasted.
That's awesome. Have you been back since?
I have not been back, but I am planning another trip back. There's just too many places to visit, Sandy.
I know.
I, I
Tell me about it.
on to the next, right? But I've been back to visit Asia on a number of occasions. I haven't made it back to Singapore, but the last 2 summers, I've gone to Vietnam
Okay.
and I've done some biking in Vietnam. And then this last trip was Vietnam, Cambodia, and up through Thailand. So
Oh, nice. Nice. I actually have a really good friend in Germany. They love that part of the world. And they've been in Indochina, I was German, and to Indonesia and to Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. And they absolutely love that part of the world. So, do you have a favorite or they all have their,
they all have their charms. We're never supposed to pick just one place because I haven't been
right?
to the place I love the best yet. So I'm still on figuring that out. But Thailand is one of the top of my list. I continually go back. I've been back 5 times. I've been from, up to Chiang Mai, all the way down to Phuket, even into some of the islands surrounding the island, the Thailand island. And everybody is so friendly. The American dollar goes very far. And
Mm.
I've never felt scared or intimidated while I was there. I always felt very safe. I've even traveled alone as a female when I'm going from maybe one place to get to a tour, because I do believe that you get a lot out of going on a tour, right? Again, it's somebody else who has a subject matter expertise. Oftentimes, if you're traveling alone, especially situational awareness is really important, especially as a female. However, I think just through my traveling, I've developed that. But as somebody new that may be contemplating going overseas and not having the repertoire of situational awareness and understanding how different cultures work, having a guide would be really important.
So, I personally, and I had a conversation with somebody about this. I love solo travel. For me, it's my favorite way to go because then you can kind of do your thing and you're not reliant. And if you want to go on a tour, you can go on a tour. And if you want to sit in a coffee shop and watch people walk by for 2 hours, you can do that. So solo travel, I just absolutely love it.
I
So
always come
you,
back. Yeah, I come back with a renewed sense of just my own power after coming back
hmm
from a solo tour, because obviously there's a lot of things that happen. Like when I was in Malaysia, I would have to wrap my head.
hmm
It's a strict Muslim country, and
right.
I wasn't trying to stick out. I was trying to blend in. And just by looking around, I was like, okay, I'm not feeling 100%. I feel like I'm standing out too much. I need to blend in. And oftentimes when we travel in, groups, maybe the tour leader can say, hey, these are some of the things that you need to be culturally sensitive about. And oftentimes we miss that, right? The
Yeah.
lens is we're just trying to find our way through this country. And some of the things that we should be situationally aware about, just kind of they go over our heads.
Well, that's very true, especially the cultural nuances, especially in a Muslim country, respecting that and abiding by that, just out of respect, abiding to those rules. I think that's very, very important. I actually have a friend who he's a personal development seminar trainer, and he's trained over 80,000 people in 14 countries. But his first visit to a Muslim country. I want to say it was Malaysia, but I can't remember. It was a Muslim country though. And he tapped a lady on, and the whole room went. He didn't realize he was young. Being aware of that, I think, is very, very important. I don't know how we got onto that from solo travel, but I just think it's something that people sometimes are not aware of because we take so much for granted. And a lot of us were just on autopilot, right?
Yeah. The State Department uses a term called cultural competence. And before going over to Singapore, they gathered the Fulbrights together and we had a conference up in DC. And they really stressed that you are a visitor in a foreign country and you have to kind of reassess through your American lens, right? Your eyes, that things are different. And whether we're a cultural ambassador or a cultural tourist, right, we have to take the time to view things maybe from a different lens, right?
Right,
From a
right.
traveler lens.
So, is Europe been on your list? Have you been to
I,
other
I
areas?
yeah, I didn't mention the fact that I lived in Jamaica for
Okay.
3 years as
Oh,
well.
wow. 3 years.
Yeah.
Nice. I love Jamaica.
My husband was a naval attaché to Jamaica, and we lived in Kingston proper. Our children ended up going to school there for 3 years. And that was a unique experience as well, to be an American and living in a Caribbean nation. Also living in the capital city of Kingston. Not many people go to Jamaica and visit the capital. They're at the
Right,
resorts all along the perimeter of the island.
right.
And just for safety reasons or just congestion and time constraints, it definitely is a different view of Jamaica. But
I'm sure.
swing back to, yes, I've been to Europe. I actually took a trip this past year and we went to Dresden and
Oh, okay.
and had a wonderful time. Went to some of the Christmas markets there.
Oh, you did. That's fun. I had a trip planned to the Weihnachtsmarkt, to the Christmas markets. There's so many, right? I mean, all across Europe. But Dresden, of course, Nuremberg, some of them, Essen,
It
they're
sounds so
just
beautiful
magical.
when you say them. I love it.
That's awesome. Even my little hometown of Zweibrücken has a one, and the Glühwein, and it's just beautiful. But Dresden and former East Germany, that's definitely one of the, big ones.
Sandy, I bought a Glühwein mug in every little Christmas market,
Oh,
only to get them home and realize that they only hold the smallest amount of drink, right? When you want a big mug of coffee, these are not the ones you reach for. They're
well, and two, the sizes in Europe, like it's funny because the tall at a Starbucks is the large in Germany. Her
not.
size does not exist.
So my 16 ounces of Java in the morning was entailed in my 8-ounce Glühwein mug.
They usually drink the cup with the sauces. It's just like I was just actually talking to another friend about this, a German friend of mine, and we both love Italy. And you don't see an Italian running around with their water bottle, right? But just different. It's just funny when you when you think about it. So going back to what is the proper term for ADHD and other learning? Is it a learning like what is it? Is it
I consider it a learning challenge. ADHD
okay?
is just a neurodiverse way of learning. So we know
Okay.
some of the heavy hitters that are some of the billionaires in industry have neurodiversity within their brains. And it allows, I say us because I'm part of that group, right? We think differently, whether
Hmm.
we can be more creative, whether we get into flow thinking about something that we're particularly interested in. Mine is executive functioning, but also I dig the ukulele and I can do that for hours. Yeah, we call that flow when we're doing something that we really like and it brings us a lot of joy. However, sometimes breaking out of that and having the neurodivergence to shift and getting into something that we don't like to do. So that may be tracking time or bill keeping or something along those lines. We have a hard time doing things that don't excite our minds.
That don't excite our minds. I like that. I mean, I have that too. So I you hear a lot about neurodivergent. So would ADHD fall under neurodivergent then?
100%. So think
Okay.
about neurodivergency as an umbrella term.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
then underneath the umbrella, you may have autism, dyslexia, specific learning disability,
Oh,
ADHD, ADD. There's so many different ways. I actually think that being neurodivergent, right? It used to be we were the outliers, but now with there's been a whole realm of individuals that have really gotten to dig deep and understand what neurodivergency really is. It's just different ways of thinking. And sometimes sitting in a classroom and being fed information isn't how our brains learn best.
Mm-mm.
And it's really understanding how we learn best and how we apply that learning and how we connect terms and how we prioritize those within our brains really make us successful. So executive functioning is shown to be even more important towards learning and life success than IQ.
So before we wrap it up, if somebody came to you that had neurodivergence in some way, shape, or form and wanted to go on a trip, what are 3 tips you would give them to not feel overwhelmed or anxious?
Number one, I would probably suggest a calendar, right? Get a calendar and being able to go through that exercise that I shared prior about Half Dome, being able to chart it out in the future and then back map it towards what needs to happen right at this moment. Also, maybe a digital app to help them be prompted to make appointments and track their time. Like I have an alarm set for Half Dome March 1st to remind me to get online and make that application. So a calendar, a digital app, and maybe a to-do list, right? Coming up with a to-do list to categorize everything that needed to happen. And I know that to-do list can get really super long. So when someone like you steps in and says, hey, let me help you with that to-do list. So you can capitalize on maybe the to-do list could be things you really want to see or really want to buy, as opposed to my to-do list would be making reservations and finding out train stops and whether it's going to rain that day. So I need to pack extra camping gear.
Right. And that's what I do. I do help people curate according to their wishes and their desires and what they want to do, itineraries based on, the country and whatever. Real quick, how many tickets do they give away for Half Dome each day? Do you know?
I don't know. I would say
Okay.
I'd probably freak myself out if I actually looked. And I'd be like, oh no, the odds are against me. But
No.
I'm forever hopeful. And I think that with all this prior planning, that I will be successful. So fingers crossed.
Oh, absolutely. We will definitely be rooting for you. And I can already see you there. Just manifest that. That's exciting. And for the audience, I will link Dr. Christine Powell's information in the show notes. So if you want to get in touch with her, if you want to ask her questions, I'll have all that information available to you. This was really interesting. Is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap it up?
Well, it's been great chatting with you. And if any of your listeners want to check out their executive functionings, I actually have on my website, it's a free research-based survey that they can actually get a kind of brain profile centered on executive functionings by answering a couple questions. They can
Oh.
get a schematic kind of that looks at their brain.
Oh, that's cool. Like I said, I'll have the website and all the information on the show notes. I'd be interested in that because you never
Perfect.
know. Thank you so much for being with us. Really, really appreciate it. And for the audience, we hope it inspired you to take your next step towards the travel dreams. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, share, or leave a review. It really means the world to me. So until next time, keep dreaming, planning, and exploring with confidence. Safe travels. And until next time, remember, every great journey starts with a single step. And we've all heard that one before. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Christine.